Manchester United fans are furious at Sir Jim Ratcliffe as he does a great interview with Gary Neville, and we're going to break it down. Jadon Sancho's return to Manchester United could be a reality. There are two clauses that could be activated, one from Jadon and one from Chelsea Football Club. Very interested. Axel Disasi could be staying at Aston Villa, or other Premier League suitors are looking at him, and we're going to have to talk about it. Fantastic news for Chelsea. But before we get started, welcome to the Kavkas View, your daily football intake is right here, and it's all the nutrition you need for the one day. For a quick fix of hitting that like button, 1,000 likes goes a long way. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the content so far, or you're intrigued in the stories, because you will enjoy it. Let's get started. Look, I want to start with the Manchester United news regarding the interview that Sir Jim Ratcliffe did, because the reality is owners don't normally talk. Owners don't actually sit down in a sit-down interview and express their feelings. A lot of people are going to say it's a PR piece, Alex. What did you get from it? Firstly, I totally agree with you. I think it is definitely a PR piece. He didn't sit down there to basically make himself look bad. He most probably had the questions vetted, and he already had pre-prepared answers, or at least guidelines of what he was going to say. However, that's more than what Chelsea's owners have done. I really wish Igbali would sit down and do an interview like that to express his feelings of where he sees the club going, how he wants the club to go, and give some fans some reassurance. Because when we get reassurance, we can actually go forward with it. Furthermore, people are angry at Gary Neville. They said he didn't ask the hard questions. I'll be honest, I think Gary Neville did a fantastic job. People can say, oh, you're going to try and get on your overlap, you brown envelope. Nothing to do with being a brown envelope. I just think there needs to be a certain level of expectation and reality surrounding these questions that are going to be asked. And I think Gary covered it. He spoke about the 40k for the former players. He spoke about the food. He spoke about the new stadium. He spoke about multiple things that I think Manchester United fans would want to know. And for me, I'll cover some of them. The first thing that I think was really important, he spoke about the 40,000 that was cut from the former players. And you could see Neville was super passionate about this. And in my opinion, Gary Neville had every right to be annoyed at this, because he's a former player, and the former players of the 70s and the 80s enabled him to be the player for an elite level club like Manchester United. And what really highlighted to me was Sir Jim Ratcliffe did not know how to answer that question properly. He said, look, if you count the pennies, it'll sort out the pounds. Whilst in business, that's a great theory. I think sometimes you need to understand where you're cutting these pennies from. Gary Neville gave a great idea. He spoke about the fact you could have got Bruno, you could have got Harry Maguire to sit down and basically do a charity evening, charge £50 a pot, boom, you would have made up the 40,000. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, well, that's a very good idea. We didn't think of that. Maybe we can do that in the future. For me, that highlights one thing. There is no innovative thinking in that boardroom. It highlights that boardroom is purely focused on reducing expenses and no creative ingenuity or no thought process of how is it going to make Manchester United look, and more importantly, how is Manchester United going to be able to not delete that expense but alternatively fund it. That just really illustrates that you have got non-footballing people in positions that are thinking about the bottom line. And that makes sense because they're business people. The next thing was regarding the free meals. Look, the free meals is an interesting one, because if you're feeding the players who are members on the on-field, you should be feeding the staff, like that are the accountants, that are the lawyers, that are the cleaners, that are the receptionists. I get that logic. However, ask yourself one thing, right? How many workplaces feed their staff? I've worked in 4 jobs since I've been an adult, right? Since I've been the age of 16, I've been working in 4 workplaces. I've never got a free lunch. So for me, whilst it would be super nice to get a free lunch, I would understand, I understand why they're cutting back on that, but I think they should cut back on it for the players too. It would make it fair, it would make it abstract, and it clearly would show a distribution between players and people, that there is no difference. You're all Manchester United staff, but they didn't do that, so they look bad again. The next thing that Jim Ratcliffe said that was very eye-opening is that they still owe £89 million this summer for players such as Højlund, Onana, Anthony, Sancho, and there was one other player on that list that I'm missing right now off the top of my head. And for me, it just highlights how whilst you pay in installments and it sounds great, there's a certain level of a gamble that you take when you do that. You need to make sure that that money comes back and their club is not at this moment in time functioning in a way where they're very profitable, where they're generating more revenue. So they are going to make cutbacks and they are going to have to make smart, calculated decisions. But it doesn't mean they can't compete, because Jim Ratcliffe was very quick to include an excuse there. He said, look, we're going to have to rebuild. We're going to get back to the position that we were in. However, it's going to take time. I don't think it should take time. Look, if you have footballing people that know what they're doing, I think any club could become a competitive top 6 club within 2 years in the Premier League. And I'll explain to you how, right? Purely based on the fact that allocating your resource accordingly. If you bring in 1 or 2 young players that are like maybe a Patrick Dorgu that you brought in right at the moment and can develop, maybe another version of Patrick Dorgu at right wing back or centre midfield, and all of a sudden you've got players that could kick on, develop, then you go and get one genuine class player. Like for example, an Isak would be the idea, right? Who could raise everyone else's level around the club. That fixes clubs. I always say this with Chelsea. We are, as Chelsea Football Club, 2 or 3 players away from competing for a title. But the difference between competing for a title and being 6th or 5th is those 2 or 3 players. Because if you bring some elite level races, the whole level of the club increases and the players around them increase. But if you don't go and get the right pieces and you just spend money for the money's sake and bring bad pieces, you're just prolonging the inevitable. This is where your recruitment needs to be on point. This is where your allocation needs to be on point. And more so, this is where you need to make sure that you are all going in one direction with your manager. If your manager needs wing backs, get him wing backs, not left backs. You can't pull in a different direction. It'll only elongate the process. But like I said earlier, if you made it this far, yo, hit that like button. It really helps out. But now let's talk about the Jadon Sancho story. So Chelsea Football Club took Jadon Sancho on loan. And we've seen Jadon Sancho at Chelsea Football Club. And since then, we've got an article that's come out today stating by Chris Wheeler that there is a possibility that Jadon Sancho can go back on loan. Initially, we thought it was a loan with an obligation of 25 million euros, right? 20 million pounds. It comes out that Chelsea could pay a significant penalty to send him back. That's the first option. And the second option is Jadon Sancho could not agree personal terms with Chelsea Football Club because they haven't been agreed, and he will go back to Manchester United. Now I'm going to give you my thought process. Number one, on the player. I think Sancho is an incredible footballer, but I think Sancho struggles with the physical aspect of the Premier League. The Premier League is the PMP ball, right? Pace and power football. Because the reality is you've got athletes that are running around, hoofball, kicking the lumps out of each other, and technical players who have got lacking those fundamental areas, don't have as much time to take the ball, reassess, and are getting exposed for their lack of expertise from a physical standpoint. Sancho being prime example. I always say, Sancho on the left-hand side, he's too slow. He's not sharp enough to get separation from players, hence why he doesn't shoot as much. He's good enough to retain the ball, and then people surround him so he recycles the ball very well. However, to create that separation and get those shots off like he was doing in the Bundesliga, he can't do it. On the right hand side, when he gets that little bit of separation, he can put a ball through in terms of a cross. He doesn't do it often. It's very much of a supporting role that Jadon Sancho does. Now with Chelsea, do I see them paying the penalty? I don't see them paying the penalty because in their head, they believe £20 million for acquiring Jadon Sancho. There will be a resale value for Jadon Sancho one day where they can sell him for £30 million, £35 million, and they'll make profit on the books. Secondly, I think the manager really likes him. Enzo Maresca really likes this player. I don't know whether in the long term, Jadon Sancho is going to be a player that he is enlightened by and he's going to be starting for Chelsea Football Club. However, and this is the key element here, I think Jadon Sancho is happy at Chelsea. You've heard him speak. You've seen how he is. He's back home in London. I don't see him rejecting personal terms, especially if it means going back to Manchester United where he is not wanted. I don't know whether he would fit the Amorim system. I don't know whether Amorim wouldn't want him. But I genuinely believe there's a whole dilemma here that no one is considering. The fact that Sancho doesn't want to go and he will want to stay at Chelsea. The club most probably wouldn't want to get rid of him. The people that would want to get rid of him is us, the fans. Genuinely, I think he's a great footballer. I just don't think he's worth the money that he's on, the 150k. And more importantly, I don't think he's productive enough. I think he's a squad filler. I don't think he's a ceiling raiser. I don't think he's a player that in the long term will benefit us. When we got him, I asked the question, Do we need him? 6 months later, 7 months later, after a few good performances, I can resoundingly sit here and tell you this was a not needed signing. Yes, he has played a lot of minutes. But at this moment in time, I don't see a vast difference between Jadon Sancho and Tariq George. And that is very damning to say when one of them earns 20 or 30k and the other one's on 150k and should be a Ballon d'Or winner according to Neymar Jr. The final story is regarding Axel Disasi and Chelsea potentially offloading the player. So the player at this moment in time is on loan at Aston Villa. He has played at Aston Villa and Aston Villa fans are really liking it. The reaction that I'm seeing on Twitter, people engaging with me, is that they really like him. They like the way that he's immersed himself into the Aston Villa backline and he looks very comfortable. Personally, I think Disasi is a good defender. Disasi is nothing special. I think the top clubs, the top 6, the ones that have the higher line, play with a crazy high line, and more importantly, take the game to the opposition. They can't play with a Disasi in their team. Disasi the other day against Brentford, where the game was more of a 50-50, where Brentford did not sit in, they attacked Aston Villa. Disasi played right back, and I saw a lot of people, Alex, Disasi's playing amazing in the first half. So I said, let me tune in and watch this game, right? So what I saw was the second half. In that second half, I saw multiple things that really put me off Disasi at Chelsea Football Club. Number one, Disasi gets caught out of position. He recovers by making a reckless slide tackle, gets a block in, celebrates it. The fans love it because of his reaction, because it's a good block. But he was caught out of position. That, for me, is poor defending. Secondly, what I think the problem is with Disasi, he's very clumsy. He's overly aggressive in his tackling. And in my opinion, he should give it away 2 penalties. But he didn't, and the ref didn't give him. VAR checked both, didn't deem it enough contact to give it away because the referee's decision stands. So the narrative is now Disasi had a good game. Reports in France are saying there are multiple Premier League suitors that are interested in the acquisition of Axel Disasi. Chelsea are willing to sell him, and Aston Villa are keen to take him. The player will want to go to Aston Villa. Unai Emery has a great track record of rejuvenating players' careers, of being able to extract more out of players that have failed at other clubs. He's a very talented manager. Aston Villa are building a great project moving forward. Whether they make the Champions League, I don't know. But what I can tell you is, if they make the Champions League, Disasi will be a Aston Villa player. If they don't, I think Chelsea will have no problem selling Disasi because there will be clubs that take Disasi. It's a matter of, does Disasi want to go there? But this was the Kavkas View. If you're new to the channel and you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you're a regular watcher, I've got a little announcement, right? This channel is going to make a little transformation. I've been making a lot of Chelsea-only content. And what I realized is we're getting to a point where the algorithm won't share me to any other football fan. And it gets to a point where I want this channel to grow. I don't only want to talk about Chelsea. That's why I never called it anything resembling Chelsea. I called it the Kavkas View. And the reason it's the Kavkas View is because I want to talk about all types of football. At this moment in time, I'm going to start experimenting with talking about all the football related stories. I will still be covering Chelsea, maybe it's 50 or 60% of the time. The other parts will be more to do with other football clubs, anything that's happened in the world, other match reactions. There won't be live streams on this channel. I think that market's very saturated at this moment in time, unless the demand is resounding. But for now, we're going to expand the channel. And if you guys mess with me and you want me to grow, and if you're new and you enjoyed what you see, definitely hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and in the comments, let me know your thoughts about the expansion. Do you like it or not? I want to see what your reactions is, because your reactions is important to me. You helped me build this platform to nearly 40,000 people, and I want to build the community here where we can just talk ball. Genuinely, I'm sitting here with my plant called Paradise, and we can be chilling out. In the comments below, by the way, put Paradise if you made it this far. I want to see who made it down. Peace out. I'm out. Have a lovely day.